I never thought my marriage would come to feel like a constant cycle of rejection. When Melissa and I first started dating, there was passion, laughter, and a kind of energy that made me believe we'd always want each other. We'd stay up late, talking about our dreams, our plans, and yes, sharing those quiet moments of closeness that bound us tighter together. But somewhere along the way, things began to change, and not in the way either of us had imagined. At first, I dismissed the signs. A headache here, a long day at work there, the occasional "not tonight, I'm tired." I told myself it was normal. Everyone goes through phases. But soon, it wasn't just once in a while. It became a pattern. Every time I reached for her hand, leaned in for a kiss, or tried to hold her close at night, she would pull away. Sometimes with a polite excuse, sometimes with an irritated sigh, and sometimes with no words at all, just a turn of her back to the other side of the bed. The rejection stung more than I admitted at first. I told myself she was just stressed. I convinced myself she would come around. But weeks turned into months, and those excuses began to feel like walls being built between us. Every brick stacked higher was another piece of my confidence chiseled away. I started questioning myself. Was I not attractive anymore? Was there something wrong with me? Or worse, was she giving herself to someone else while shutting me out? The worst part wasn't even the lack of intimacy itself, but the way it made me feel invisible in my own home. I was still her husband, still providing, still listening, still trying. Yet every time I reached for her, I was reminded that my needs didn't matter, that I didn't matter. Eventually, I stopped asking, not because I didn't want her, but because I couldn't keep putting myself through the pain of hearing no, or watching her recoil like my touch was something to be avoided. But life has a cruel sense of irony. The very same woman who dismissed me night after night suddenly turned to me with requests. Small favors, little needs, things she wanted done. Can you pick up the groceries on your way home? Can you fix the sink? It's leaking again. Can you take care of this bill? I don't have time. At first, I obliged like I always had. But deep inside, something hardened. I began to see the imbalance. She had no problem taking from me, but she gave nothing back. Her comfort, her needs, her convenience, they were always at the forefront. Mine were pushed into the shadows, left to wither. So I made a choice, a quiet rebellion. If she could dismiss my needs so effortlessly, then I would do the same. The first time I ignored her, it was almost unintentional. She asked me to run an errand after a long day at work. Normally, I'd force a smile and say yes. That evening, I just said, "I'm tired," and went to bed. The look on her face told me she wasn't used to hearing no. That small moment of refusal planted a seed inside me. For once, I wasn't bending. I wasn't the dependable husband who sacrificed his own needs just to keep the peace. And it felt strangely liberating. Melissa didn't say much that night, but I could sense the unease in her silence. Over the next few weeks, I started to mirror back what I had lived with for years. She would come to me with a request, and I would shrug, claim I was busy, or simply ignore it. "Can you help me with the laundry?" she'd ask. "Not tonight," I'd reply without even looking up. "Can you grab dinner on your way home?" "Didn't have time," I'd say, even though I had passed 3 restaurants on my drive. The irony wasn't lost on me. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I wasn't trying to hurt her the way I had been hurt. But for the first time in a long time, I was making her see what it felt like to be dismissed, to have your needs treated as an afterthought. First, she brushed it off. Maybe she thought it was a phase, that I'd fall back into my old pattern of always giving in. But as days turned into weeks, her tone shifted. She began to ask why. "You never used to say no. What's going on with you?" she asked one evening, frustration evident in her voice. I looked at her, and for a moment, the years of rejection flashed through my mind. The nights I lay awake wondering what I had done wrong. The times I held back tears because I didn't want to seem weak. The countless moments when all I wanted was to feel close to my wife and was met with nothing but coldness. "What's going on with me?" I repeated. "Melissa, what's been going on with us? For years, every time I wanted to be close to you, you turned me away. You shut me out. And now you're surprised when I don't jump at every request you throw at me." She froze, as if the mirror I had placed in front of her was too clear, too uncomfortable to look into. I wasn't yelling, I wasn't angry. I was simply telling the truth. And sometimes, the truth stings more than any shouted accusation. In the days that followed, she grew quieter. I could tell she was thinking, maybe even regretting, but I wasn't sure if it was regret for how she treated me or frustration that I no longer played the role she expected. For me, though, something had shifted permanently. I realized that respect and intimacy are tied together more deeply than most people understand. When one partner consistently rejects the other, it doesn't just starve the marriage of physical connection, it erodes the very foundation of partnership. Ignoring her requests wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming a part of myself I had allowed to be diminished. I had given so much without asking for anything in return, and all I had gotten was rejection. Now I was done pleading, done chasing, done begging for scraps of affection. I didn't know what the future held for us. Maybe Melissa would wake up to the damage she had done. Maybe she wouldn't. But for the first time in years, I felt a sense of clarity. If she wanted my effort, my help, my attention, then she needed to remember that I, too, was worthy of being wanted, of being seen, of being loved. Because marriage isn't built on one person always giving while the other takes. It's built on balance, on respect, on mutual desire. And until Melissa chose to see that, I was no longer willing to carry the weight of both sides. For once, I wasn't the man begging for closeness. I was the man who finally understood his worth.